Tüm izleyicilerimize merhaba. UNFPA Türkiye YouTube kanalı.
UNFPA Turkey YouTube channel is hosting us. We're all together here in order to discuss one of the most significant problems in Turkey, and we're going to discuss this problem from multiple aspects. So we will go beyond statistical figures. We'll be talking about violence against women. As a news person and as a speaker, I regret to say that violence against women news are always topping high in the list of the stories. I don't know if it is about message fatigue, but we're so bombarded by all these news that now we're getting used to this. Maybe sometimes because of media, social media, some tragic events remain on the agenda for some time, maybe for some days, and then it is forgotten among other items of the agenda. And today we're going to discuss this topic from multiple dimensions. If you, the viewers, are interested in anything or have any questions, I will be glad to convey your questions to our panelists. At the end of our panel, I would like to thank UNFPA Turkey office for giving me the opportunity of sharing this time slot with you. So the purpose is to raise awareness about these topics, and even if we can take just one small step, that will make us happy. And who are with us today? UNFPA gender-based violence expert Meltem Adok is going to deliver the opening speech. Then she'll leave, but before that, she's going to talk about the concept of gender-based violence both for Turkey and the globe. And when it is violence against women, we have one academician, Professor Dr. Feride Acar, who is always there to explain the topic to us. She is going to share with us both good and bad examples, and she's going to try to answer the question, where is our position? We know that NGOs constitute an important pillar in the relative initiatives. So Canan Güllü, the chairperson of the Federation of Women Associations in Turkey, she's with us. And by the way, dear Canan, please also mention about the signing ceremony that you will join today. We know that violence doesn't have to be always physical, especially in the business world. There is severe psychological violence that is victimizing the women. And here we have one guest related to this topic, Sevda Alkan, Business Against Domestic Violence Project Manager. Burcu Karakaş, journalist, is with us. Media is playing an important role in order to raise awareness in the process. The language being used should not be offensive. So I'm also a journalist and a broadcasting person. I believe that it's an important topic. I shared another panel with Burcu before. I know how sensitive she is. So she's going to talk about the language of news stories. And finally, Songül Öden is going to take the floor. She's UNFPA Turkey spokesperson. Welcome, Songül. So, would like to hear from you your observations from your fieldwork. And as a woman, I think you are also thinking about and speculating about what else we can do. Maybe we can talk with you what kind of collaboration can be made in future. So I would like to hear from you your observations from the field and also the effect of all these observations on your artistic creation processes. I would like to welcome you all once again, and during the Q&A session, I will be glad to convey the questions coming from the viewers to you. So, dear Meltem, are you ready to start? Yes, I am. Let's start. As I said before, this is a social problem that is beyond statistics. And sometimes the cases end up with killings, death, murderings. And that should also be thought as a public health issue. So the health is not limited to physical body health. It also has an important component, which is mental health. So in the community, there are people who are traumatized and who are traumatizing the others. So in the presence of these two groups, I think we cannot talk about the complete public health. So you are an expert of violence. I wonder what you will tell about this. What should be the future projection? Thank you very much. I will try to be as brief and concise as possible, but this is not something I'm always successful at, but I will give it a shot. You just said that violence against women, gender-based violence, okay, is always in front of us. Sometimes it becomes an uprising topic on our agenda, on the social media, then we happen to forget about it, and then some event happens again, and we remember it again. Tomorrow, is the 25th of November. Let me mention this to start. And why is it important? So, is that day a reminder day? And for how long do we associate or have we associated this date with the topic? This topic is a global topic. Let me tell you about the story of the 25th of November. It can be dated back to 1950s, 60s. In the Dominican Republic, there used to be a dictator Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. So the dictator silenced all opposition voices, just like all dictators do. And he mentions about three sisters, three important dangers. So one church and Mirabel sisters. So three sisters, the Mirabel sisters. When they were coming back home from visiting their husbands at prison, their car was stopped by the soldiers of the dictator. They were raped, and then they were thrown away down from a cliff. They were killed, and in the official records, it was shown as a traffic accident. So for the first time in 1981 in the Latin American Women's Congress, and then later on in the UN Assembly, this date was announced as an International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And since early 2000s, in fact, that day has been made more special with the initiative of Ban Ki-moon, the then Secretary General of the UN. And so this is now a time frame. It starts now, and it ends on the 10th of December, and it is a campaign, a full-fledged campaign. Join. Under the word join, many campaign activities are organized, awareness raising, reviewing the problem, creating discussion platforms about the solutions, and also with the opportunities created and the call for global actions, we spent these 16 days. However, we would like to evolve these 16 days into 365 days. Every year, a theme is picked. And I'd like to respond to your question with the theme of this year. This year, we have 4 topics under theme. Fundraise, prevent, intervene, and collect data. First item, why do we have to raise funds? How do we prevent? How do we intervene? And why do we collect data? First, talk about why. There is one single reason for violence against women. Imbalanced, unequal power relations with the women and girls. This is gender inequality. Unfortunately, against women and girls, this is the root cause, and this is the most severe violation of human rights. Maybe it starts with some small, tiny offensive word, and it ends with death, and it's a wide range of cruel activities against women and girls. And the reason is that imbalance, unequal power relations. So 1 in every 3 women around the world is subject to violence at one stage of its life. I both like and favor the statistics, and I don't like them. I like them because when you have statistics, you can have a better view of the picture standing before you. Then you can improve the services provided, and it means that you will have more data for improving the services. On the other hand, I don't like the statistics because even in one community, even once a woman is victimized by violence, is disabled, is killed or murdered, this is a severe problem by itself. During the COVID period, we have seen it in many places that unfortunately the women had to stay in the same house with the persons who implement the violence. And also we have a ratio about this, and it comes from the recent research. During the last 12 months, it means during the COVID-19 period, every one woman in 5, in fact, was exposed to ill treatment. So what do we conclude here? So in different parts of the world, women are exposed to violence of different types. So physically, sexually, mentally, so they are crippled, they are disabled, they are killed. So domestic violence, female circumcision, elimination of the birth, burning of the body, and when the husband dies, sometimes the women are buried and killed and buried with the men as well. So these are different varieties of violence we see around the world. What could be done for future? We have to continue what we are doing now, I mean the attempts, and we have to undertake more. We need to raise funds. We need to improve the services for women. We need to renew the intervention systems. We need to collect more data so that we can do more in future. The violence is exacerbated by negative social norms and gender norms. In order to eliminate them, we need to start working from early childhood. We have been doing this, but we have to do more. Also, we need political determinism. It's essential that we have legislation, conventions, international conventions, regional conventions, have to be drafted and signed, but this is not enough. They have to be enforced because no penalty is the biggest obstacle to eliminating violence against women. So laws are important and their enforcement is important. So data collection, data analysis, and data dissemination. These are essential for the sake of transparency. By this way, we can develop more services and policies. And the intervention policy must be multi-sectoral. Is it? Yes, it is. In Turkey and many countries of the world. But these services must be optimized and rendered by the properly trained and qualified people. So we have to go beyond what we have been doing so far. COVID-19 was just a warning. I'm coming close to the end of my remarks. COVID-19 was a warning to the humankind. And maybe it's not very intensive in our region, but we're also going through a climate crisis, an environmental crisis. And just like it is the case in all the crises, the women and girls always suffer from violence at a higher rate, and that will be the case again. So there are many lessons that we have learned so far. There is a great deal of information that we have gained so far. We have to take them forward, and we need to find different ways of implementation. We're doing a lot, we're speaking a lot, but now the time is to act more. We need more actions, especially as regards activism. Of course, we have the civil society organizations, NGOs in particular, and also the public media, and every actor has to play its role. Thank you. That's all. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Meltem Hanım, for your remarks. So you're walking in a very difficult way. It's not easy to do that. Thank you very much for all your efforts. Hopefully, soon this problem will diminish, but this won't happen, of course, overnight. At least in the society, if one woman is being exposed to violence, if she has a child, then that the feeling that she feels is being multiplied. So for that reason, I would like to thank you. Thank you for your participation. I know you need to leave. Thank you very much for your contribution in this field academically. Up until today, you do have in-depth works. Now I would like to continue with someone who works deeply in this field, Professor Feride Acar. Thank you very much for allocating time for us during your hectic agenda, because you will not be dealing just with the national level, but also the global level of the problem. In Turkey, you are working a lot in this field, and of course, you do know the good examples and the bad examples. Now let's hear from you. What are the good examples in Turkey? To what extent they are in the forefront? What are the bad examples in Turkey? To what extent they are in the forefront? So where are we in the struggle? Please unmute yourself also. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here to take part in this panel, because I'm together with very competent speakers here. Thank you very much also for your good presentation of mine. Now I will be talking about the international mechanisms and also what are the progresses made forward. So I will be taking my time for these. So when we talk about international mechanisms, or when we talk about the documents that they produce, especially recently in Turkey, we recall Istanbul Convention, of course. So it is a European Commission Convention, Council Convention. During the making of Istanbul Convention, I was taking part in those phases, and I talked a lot about that. So I will not be talking about it today. I would like to talk about something different today. The reason for that is, so we do not just have Istanbul Convention, international norms and international mechanisms bearing international norms. So they're like letters. They're working like letters. One is built upon the other one. So one document, one approach, so appearance of one approach bears another approach and other documents. And the progress in the human rights in the world happens so with new standards, with the coming of new standards. So other than Istanbul Convention, and after that, what do we have? The most important thing here is UN CEDAW committee has the 35th recommendation. And also this panel is being organized by United Nations. So for that reason, we can talk about and we can make use of the outputs of UN here. So I will not be talking about CEDAW here. I think everybody listening to us knows this. So it is like the Constitution of Human Rights. So it is one of the 9 main human rights convention of UN. So in the committee of this convention, in the years, so the reports are being submitted to this report, NGO shadow reports, and also as the accumulation of knowledge in the experts, they do issue some general recommendation documents. And in these recommendation documents, within the convention, some issues are not clearly handled. The details for these issues and how they have to be implemented, somehow they prescribe this to the governments. And when we have a look at this from this perspective, then within the convention, the issues which are not detailed very well. For example, first comes violence against women, for example. Within CEDAW, because of the conditions of that period, the violence against women is not directly mentioned. But in 1992, the committee, to fill this gap, to compensate this, issued a general recommendation. That general recommendation, since then, all the regional and the other international standards are founded by that. So the recommendation number 19. And this was issued in 1992, and committee said that violence against women is discrimination. It is being imposed to women because they are women, and women, as a result of this, cannot enjoy their human rights as men. And there is such a pre-exception, and upon this, there are some documents based on this, and also there are progresses coming out of this. For example, Beijing Platform, UN Convention on Violence Against Women, and also there are some regional conventions. And lastly, we come out with the Istanbul Convention. And Istanbul Convention is a European convention, but it is based on this approach. It is founded on this approach. For that reason, UN sees Istanbul Convention as a gold standard. But of course, there are the other steps of the ladder. In 2017, again, CEDAW committee received some new information, and within that period, in the globe, progresses have been made in the world, and based on this, a new perspective was brought. And this new perspective is the recommendation number 35. What are the important points of this recommendation? First of all, this general recommendation 35 and all the other general recommendations are not happening overnight. They are based on experiences. They are based on the accumulation of knowledge. So with recommendation number 35, UN said that to the competent committee said that we are not rejecting recommendation number 19. It is the beginning of everything. So it is the beginning of everything. So it is still valid, it says. So this is a type of discrimination, and it hinders women to enjoy their human rights. But of course, there are many new types of violence. And within the time being, we have learned them, we have seen them. And in the struggle to be more effective in different regions, for example, in Latin America, for Balón de Parella, in Europe, Istanbul Convention, some new standards have been developed. And under the light of these standards, again, at the global level, this violence at the global level had to be re-evaluated. And then we came up with general recommendation number 35. So what is it? It is like, I will be explaining it like a pill in this short period of time. It first says, so let's not call it violence against women. Let's say this is gender-based violence against women. So the term now is changed as gender-based violence against women. So it transformed likewise. So what does it mean? So what does it mean, gender-based? And the definition in the previous letter, in the previous step in the Istanbul Convention, first of all, it is also legally binding. First of all, for the first time, this gender-based terminology and gender-based violence terminology definitions are defined there. So gender-based violence is, so by the society in a certain period of time, socially some roles are given to women and men. These are some expectations, roles, actions, or qualities. So society expects this from women and women because they think that it is suitable for them. And violence is a result of this dynamic, is a result of this understanding. It is why it is appearing. And this gender-based violence against women. And when we think about some conservative reactions towards this in our country and also in some other countries, we see these reactions on its own. I think it's a very important step. This is how we understand it. If you do have any questions, of course, later we can go deep in it. So, general recommendation number 35, what does it say? More. First, violence against women makes men like right holders over women. So it is such an ideology, it says. So socially, as I said before, it is socially realized and it is produced by the society, and it occurs via social dynamics. And to eradicate it, it has to be in all levels of educational curricula. So this gender should be inserted in curriculum, and prejudices, the stereotypes should be eradicated, and gender equality should be put in the forefront, it says. Of course, I want to think my country under these conditions and evaluate my country under these conditions. But general recommendation number 35 says that gender-based violence against women is a crime, and there has to be a sensitivity in all parts of society, especially law enforcement, education, health, justice, religion, officials, and traditional leaders should be trained for this, it says. And it says something very important. Gender-based violence against women from time to time under certain conditions, for example, rape or domestic violence or some other harmful implementations, it can be accepted as torture. And this is inhumane and intimidating and should be accepted as a tyranny behavior. And so it talks about gender-based violence against violence should be taken seriously by the government. So this recommendation goes one step ahead of Istanbul Convention. And general recommendation number 35 says that if there is sexual harassment or if there is sexual violence, if this happens within wedlock, within marriage, then the criteria to be used should look for informed and free consent, explicit consent. So the victim, did she show resistance to this during the act? Was there use of force? In terms of defining this crime, this shouldn't be used. This shouldn't be sufficient. So the government, when issuing their laws and when they are implementing these laws, they have to take this into consideration. I don't want to go into very much detail, but I have to say something. General recommendation number 35 talks much more about this multi-dimensional violence. So sometimes women are not subjected to violence because they are women, because they are refugees, because they are a part of an ethnic group, because they do have some different identities, because they are lesbian, because they are trans individuals. They are exposed to more multi-dimensional violence and discriminatory violence, and governments should be aware of these all, and laws and implementations should appear accordingly. And if we do have a more generic look towards this, I would like to underline something. General recommendation number 35 tells that violence against women accepting this as a crime or forbidding this, it is a principle of traditional law of our day. So countries may not be a party to a convention, but the countries of the world should act with these values, it says, because the international traditional law requires this, it says. So this general recommendation should be known very well, and it has to be implemented very well. But I have concerns, serious concerns about this. For example, in our country, General Recommendation number 35, regarding this recommendation, yes, and civil society is doing it, but because of the state, there is lack of information giving, and there is no initiative of raising awareness. I haven't seen this. So it is dating back to 2017. This recommendation dates back to 2017. Yes, in terms of violence against women, all the steps in Turkey and all over the globe is being forced, is being pushed by the civil society. So they come to the agendas of the governments, but it hasn't come to the agenda of our government yet. And this 16 days of activism, in the first day of this 16 days of activism, because I have given this opportunity, I wanted to draw your attention to these documents. If you do have any questions about its details, I will be glad to answer.
So there are questions coming about the roadmap because when you are speaking, I try to follow the questions and comments that are left in the box under YouTube. So I'm going to give you some of these questions. Professor Feride has already mentioned about this a little bit. You know that some events can really trigger and induce the public reaction, especially if that event is related to female murderings or violence against women. Sometimes just try to do what the jurisdictional authorities cannot do. If they feel that the media does not fulfill the rule as expected, then they can show the reaction of or behaving in a more organized way. And who is doing more in terms of the undertaken roles? I think my answer is the NGOs. So I will ask an NGO what else we can do. But in your personality, Canan Güllü, first of all, I would like to thank all the NGOs. Canan Güllü, so you are coming from a signing ceremony. You signed the protocol, and you are the chair of the Federation of Women's Associations in Turkey. So today you signed a protocol. I know that you have been exerting efforts all your time. So what is that protocol you're signing? I just ran from the signing ceremony hall into this room. You cannot expect such agile action from my body, but I'm in Beylikdüzü municipality. It is about an emergency hotline protocol. What is that? So in the presence of violence against women, some guidance can be provided, victimization can be prevented, measures can be provided through an emergency hotline. And rather than the establishment of such a hotline, there is more to be done under this protocol. Public cooperation is created, and public and civil society is brought together with the protocol that we create. And you see the poster on the screen now. We tell to the municipalities, you can open consultation centers, but let's work together. Let's not spend too much time alone. Let's create a violence map for your district first. So we already will be receiving some phone calls, and we're going to provide you with quarterly feedbacks. Who are calling? Where do they call from? And we can also provide training for you. And in your district or in your metropolitan municipality, you can expand your area. For example, you can collaborate with the Chamber of pharmacists, hairdressers, taxi drivers, and then we can provide the necessary training. And sometimes we can also ask you the questions, where are you? We can come at your address. And we wanted to create a demographic atlas. So our aim was to be companions. We can use each other's human force and experience. There are certain questions for our atlas. For example, how many people are there in the household? What are they doing, etc. So what you need is just human force, some computer literacy, and you create some databases. And it also includes demographic data and academic data. Antalya, İzmir, Ankara, Metropolitan Municipalities, Beylikdüzü District Municipality, Çankaya, Çiğli, Seyhan District Municipalities, Mersin Metropolitan Municipality are just some examples of the municipalities with whom we signed the protocol. And when you look at the demographics of that emergency hotline, I see, for example, from which district most of the calls come from. This is not stigmatizing one district. This is not to say that, okay, this district has too much violence. We just receive some numbers, and it becomes an experience for us because we put this to the attention of the mayor, and we can generate and devise some solution possibilities and recommendations. As I said, we also collaborate with the taxi drivers in the chamber. So for 80 taxi cabs, we created stickers. For example, if a woman has to take a cab just very urgently, she can get informed about us by just means of that sticker. And in order to extend and expand and make accessible the hotline, we also are included in the project Business Against Domestic Violence. So we also provide TOT training for the blue-collared and the white-collared workers. You really underlined a very nice point. I'm involved in the women movement in Turkey, and that movement is very strong. We can adapt very quickly. We have good strategies. We have future projections. We can really implement the very quickly. You know, Nahide Opus event. At the time, the law number 6284 was being drafted, and then there was the Istanbul Convention process going on. Before that, there was law 4320. We were involved in drafting all of them. A couple of months ago, there was a discussion in the public for lifting of Istanbul Convention, and there was a reaction in the civil society, and we said that no, it is an acquired right for us, and we will not give up. And then the discussion stopped. Alimony, violence against young women, and the divorce cases. These are also the different fields that our associations are fighting. So we want we are struggling because Turkey can become a better and more democratic country. But you, my female colleagues, should also commit themselves to this, and you are all dedicated, you're all committed, and we can not ignore that kind of dedication. So we have colleagues from the academic world working with us, and our duty is to implement these solutions today in our country. Maybe I don't know the current numbers. I cannot say that between 2008 and 2020 3,500 women were killed. These numbers are the numbers covered by media. These are not realistic because on the background there are women who committed suicide, who were not officially checked in an autopsy, or who were not registered at all because that event just took place in a village, or maybe that killing was not taken to court, etc. We don't have accurate data. Yesterday, the Ministry of Interior announced some figures about the reduction in violence cases. I do not accept those figures. But in today's data bank, we need information about why the women are killed, at what age was their migration, what was the idea of the murderer, the hometown, profession. I'm not interested with which political party they are affiliated. Both the victim and the murderer, their political affiliations are not important because violence is above the political issues and parties. It's important that we implement policies of prevention and data collection. We do not invest in prevention in this country. Yes, women's organizations do it. We have emergency hotlines, psychological assistance, economic support, social solidarity from the municipality, social solidarity assistance from the Ministry of Family, furniture requests from the private sector, or accommodation to be covered by the hotels. We provide them, but we also need to work on prevention. And for prevention, we need detailed data about the murders. Just crying and weeping after death cases is not the solution, or going to the court to see that the mechanisms are implemented. These are not solutions. In this country, I want the mechanisms in operation. Gender-based violence and gender inequality should be eliminated, and that patriarchal way of thinking and gender discrimination should be eliminated. This is all about my fight, and this is a common fight that is given by all my colleagues. Otherwise, that will continue until we go to the grave. We don't want to carry their coffins. We have International Istanbul Convention. We have law number 6284. Still, we have the penal code. It's not well formulated as a crime, but it is described as a criminal element. So we have to take action. Despite the pain that we feel, Turkey should not be a country where women are murdered, but just like the pre-Republican area, it deserves to be a country where the women are struggling for their rights. And now the women are just showing their power and further enforcing their fight, and they will continue their fight before and after the 25th of November. In Turkey, I have companions in this fight who support this cause. I would like to thank all of them. Of course, I will be ready to answer your questions. So today we start away. Tomorrow, with Şişli and Kartal district municipalities, we're going to sign the same protocol. So we still have a long way to go, and we have the power to continue our journey. Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you very much, Can Hanım. I think Meltem Hanım applauded you, so I hope your strength will increase. So you are inspiring many women with your efforts for years. Of course, it is over politics. It's a super political issue. But in the implementation, to what extent we succeed in doing so, this can be debated, of course. And during questions and answers, because this is my personal interest, I have to ask this to you. So women sometimes legitimizing violence. So just one slap, she is just slapped by her husband. So it happens. Such approaches. to what extent it increases this problem rather than solving it. So I would like to talk about this with you because in the very beginning, women, if women do not say stop to this, I think the solution will be very difficult. Yes, we may have many trainings, we can carry out awareness raising campaigns, but first, women should adopt this issue. I will be answering this question separately later because it is a very important question. Yes, I think it is very important because I think I needed to ask this question because I received a comment to my share yesterday. We shared the this panel's this panel on our accounts, but one woman said, "You are always talking about violence, but the family is the main unity," she said. So I was surprised. So the woman perspective, which was an unfriendly, we have to, I think, talk about that. And Sevda Hanım, if you're ready, I will be continuing with you. Hello. Yes, of course, we need to talk about the business world dimension of this issue, of this problem. So you do have information in terms of domestic violence within business world. In terms of response mechanisms, you do have some efforts. So please, maybe you may share this and what do we need to do? As answered by the previous speakers, panelists, maybe you can also answer this question. Yes, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Simge Hanım. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to UNFPA Turkey office. It is very good to come together with such inspiring people. I'm honored. In my speech today, since 2014, UNFPA and Sabancı Foundation are supporting Business Against Domestic Violence project. So within the scope of this project, we do have researches and efforts. So I will be presenting my information about this. So first, I would like to talk about a research in 2014 in 20 companies with 2,000 employees. So we made a research on violence against white-collar women, and according to this research, many of these women are university graduates, and 75% of them in the past they were exposed to one kind of domestic violence in their history. This was a very high rate, and when we look at separately the types of violence, so 40% of these women are exposed to emotional violence or psychological violence, and 17% of them are exposed to physical violence. Economic violence and psychological violence are also existing, despite the fact that we mostly hear physical violence. And 16% of the women, because of economic reasons, they need to sustain their relations. But we are talking about women with economic liberty, and 30% of them needed to leave their homes temporarily. And these kinds of violence, and yes, I have talked about the kinds of violence and their rates, but when they're exposed to such a situation, with whom or with where they share this. And this was very striking also. 43% of the women shares this with their friends or neighbors. So if we assume that they are sharing this with people who do have a low level of awareness, I think they cannot find solution to their problems. And the individuals exposed to violence, 30% of them do not share this with anybody. So they're trying to solve this problem on their own. And all the employees, so men and women together, if a woman is exposed to violence, who do you think she should apply? When we asked this question, 17% said that this problem is a personal problem and the person should solve this on their own, they said. And employees did have a low level of awareness regarding this, we have seen. And in workplaces, were they aware of the situation? 25% of the employees witnessed that their colleagues are exposed to violence, and they hear that, and mostly they show depression. And men and women, both employees, if a woman is exposed to violence, they think that their performances, work performances, will be influenced negatively. So they agree upon that. And in terms of when we look at this data, we thought that as business world, we have to take place in the struggle against domestic violence. And in terms of building a culture which doesn't tolerate domestic violence within a business world. Regarding this, we prepared a guideline for that. And as John mentioned, this year we will be preparing this guideline for municipalities. So we will be disseminating this work both in business world and also in municipalities. And today, more than 70 companies took part in this project. And for domestic violence, they produced policies and they established support mechanisms. So what kind of supports are they providing? Of course, this is not just giving a commitment or committing to something. As Meltem mentioned, it should go beyond commitment, and we're talking about companies who are taking actions. Support mechanisms mainly, for example, paid leaves and psychosocial support mechanisms, legal counseling mechanisms, and also together with Women Associations Federation, we were in communication. We do. So there are companies in cooperation with Women Associations Federation. And in terms of gender equality, to raise awareness in companies, trainings were rendered. Of course, the external internal communication also were established for this. And uh, gender equality and partner violence should be accepted as a matter of workplace, they said, and in the processes of the companies, this should be included. They accepted this as companies providing policies for this. And companies which produced policies were subjected to an impact analysis. So regarding violence against women or domestic violence, we looked at the impact of the project on the employees of the companies and what change it created. Yes, companies are providing policies, producing policies, but many policies or projects may not be known by the employees, or sometimes they do not function. And so when we had this impact analysis, I gave you a figure recently. In 2014, in the research in 2014, employees said that 17% of them said that this is a personal problem and persons should solve this on their own, they said. And this rate went down to 12%. In 2019, and this showed the positive impact of the efforts of the companies. And also, when we look at the causes of violence, psychology of man, patriarchal structure of the society, such causes are chosen by more people in 2019 questionnaire, and it shows that the participants of 2019 questionnaire are more aware, and now they relate violence more with patriarchal society structure, and companies in their efforts with NGOs raise this awareness. And when we look at the authorities which can be applied to social workers, violence hotlines, in 2019 now they're known more and people are reaching these solutions. And also HR departments and the related departments in the company are applied to when there is violence against any employees. And when we come to the education or training, employees are made aware about discriminative words and also sharing domestic roles and responsibilities. Yes, we kicked it off as violence against women or domestic violence, but under the umbrella of gender equality, companies exerted their efforts. All these researches, and within the scope of all the efforts that we have made so far, companies are not just keeping policies written on the shelves, they also turn them into actions. Companies taking part in this project, they do not see this as a corporate responsibility, but as a workplace procedure. They accept it. So for that reason, the efforts were more efficient. And lastly, what I can say is women in work life, to exist fully, and from the perspective of private sector, they are to make them stronger, and in terms of human rights and in terms of sustainability, to reach international goals, there has to be workplace policies and support mechanisms for women, and business world can assume such an important role. And UNFPA and Sabancı Foundation, with their support, we do see a concrete example of this with this project. And after this year, I hope more companies will join, and also municipalities will work more.
Okay, I turn on my microphone. Thank you, Sevda, for all the data that you shared with us about business life. So about eradication and elimination of violence against women. So not only civil society, but also media play an important role. So I wonder what Burcu Karakaş will be saying about this, because really, personally, I believe that when you look at the written press, the pictures that are used, the language that are used, these are very important. So in order to protect the rights of the victims of violence, and also in order to prevent humiliation of the children and the women, and also to eliminate the legitimization of this crime. The text is very important. So there should be no concern in the text. There should be no concern in the news material that we are using. So the personal data should still be kept private, so that the future problems will be eliminated in the women's life or the children's life. There was one beautiful comment from the audience on YouTube. So the women who struggle at the price of their life, just to be able to say their own words. I salute you all. That is a beautiful sentence. I didn't want to miss this comment. So, Burcu, now, what would you say about the role to be played by media in the elimination of violence against women? Because there is something that we call message fatigue in the media. So you cover this topic more, and then you do not trigger the feelings that you used to be. This is true for both the reporter and the reader. What would you say about this? Hello, everyone. I know that my time is limited. I would like to start right away with my remarks. Okay, we say and speak about always a media discourse, but this is a very new sphere. So just it has a history of about a decade. And what does that mean? Okay, these topics did not fall from the sky, but we are speaking about these topics on the media thanks to the women's movement. So we have a concept in Turkish newspapers, the third page coverage. So the third page of a newspaper is always about the criminal incidences, murdering, stabbing, and other crimes, etc. You see a small box, a feature saying that, okay, one woman was killed by being stabbed by the husband. But that was in the past. Now these stories are being covered on the first page. Maybe those events become the headlines, but you need data to be able to do it. Okay, sometimes you hear numbers, etc., but we don't know what data means. So women associations and organizations provide the media with data. We heard some figures from Canan, but this is not all about it. The state should keep the statistics, and also we should have historical data because, for example, I don't know how many women were killed in 1985. The absence of data, does it mean that there was no incidents at all in the past? So I don't want to introduce you a pessimistic perspective. The media is also improving. I'm trying to say this. So if okay, think about the reporter. The reporter may be male, female, gay, so it doesn't matter. It's important that the reporter or the news writer has awareness about gender. So the writer of the story should not be blaming the women. You just talk about a comment that you got one of your followers yesterday. Okay, sometimes the women can find excuses for violence. Let me tell you one personal story of my own. I was a very fresh journalist. I used to work for Hürriyet Daily, and there was always some discussion in the newsroom about, okay, the women are like this and men are like that. But this is a patriarchal system. So this is about questioning whys. And if you start generating excuses, it may end up at very pitiful places. For example, also she was drinking anyway. So there is another aspect. Let's talk about indictments. An indictment is written by a public prosecutor, and all details of an event is covered in an indictment. And after the indictment, we just cover the story. So an indictment is all about details. Okay, how many stabbings? Was it torsioned in the body, etc., etc. So if I get all that information from the indictment and embed it in my story, then I'm not a reporter. I need a filter. It is not about censoring because there are too many details in an indictment, but I have to handle this data. Which data is needed? Which data should be put to the forefront in my story? Okay, let's think about a child abuse case. These are not very different topics, you know. Okay, in the indictment, it writes that there was some panties in that color on the 6-year-old girl. Okay, this is detail, but you know that level of detail can also provide you with an increased number of clicks. And also, let's talk about the visuals and images. Images are also dangerous and tricky. Okay, think about there's a story about violence or murder. Okay, a woman is just trying to cover herself or trying to protect herself in a corner. Another man with a hand in the air. So one victim is victimized twice, and you know, the violence is being glorified. I don't want to use that image, but when I said my story, that my boss asked for the image. I don't want to use that image. And then they look at the stock of images that they have, but their stock inventory of pictures are full of the same images. And I just provide them with another picture. So there is the Association for Elimination of Violence. They have an archive. If there are any reporters listening to me now, you can just visit their archive and you can pick a relevant image from that archive. You learn on the way. You learn by doing. I was not born with that information. When I was a fresh journalist, in fact, all these things were very new to us, and we learned and we are learning. So, and media is not all about a press, a paper, a story, a poster that you see in the street, an exhibition, I don't know, some kind of demonstration. There are always people who try to raise awareness. Yesterday, I was in another event and I also said the same thing. The word awareness, I don't like this word, because anyone who knows about it, who doesn't know about it, then come and join, and then very ridiculous things appear. Okay, there was someone who wanted to attract attention to child marriage, and they put some children, some girls, wearing a wedding dress, and they made them walk on the podium. You see, this is ridiculous, and this is beyond politics. Also, they try to do some photography, and they give makeup to the women, give them some artificial bruises, and then they said that, okay, our aim was to raise awareness. But this is also ridiculous. One popular example, a sexy woman, some tights and high stiletto shoes, and she was lying on a white background. There was a knife on her back, and there was writing on the picture, okay, violence is bad. And an advertising agency prepared that poster. This doesn't help. You can criticize it by saying, okay, what did you do? So, but these are produced by people who have not given a thought about this. Maybe they start with some goodwill, but then they make a mess. So I'm finishing. It's like Fatih Altaylı. So Shefika was killed in Manisa. She was stabbed by the man, and all her intestines was out, and he used the picture at the front page. You cannot do this. The woman had a child. Maybe she's not alive anymore, but she still has a child. This is not how you attract attention and raise awareness. It's important that media corrects its language, and also social media. Young women, university graduates, female graduates. If you detect an improper use of language, they go and ask why. They want the media and speakers to be accountable. There were two examples. In one, there was Berrak Tüzün Ataç. She wore something, and NTV just wrote something gender discriminating, and Berrak just teased them. And then many people criticized. For the first time, it was happening in Turkish media. We didn't understand the importance then. NTV just removed the tweet and apologized. It was happening for the first time. It was a media corporation apologizing for one of their tweets. Second example, Özgecan Aslay, young woman, was killed, and everyone was sorry, saying that, okay, our daughter, she was our daughter. No, that is wrong. She was not daughter to you. And again, Hürriyet Daily, at that very hot times, covered one story in its website. Okay. She puts, the Daily put something about rape in the newspaper with 3 dots. It got a huge negative reaction from the women, and then they changed the headline. So everything is problematic. Media language is problematic. Okay, but also I believe that there are women using social media, and use of social media by women is fine-tuning the media in general. And this is thanks to the women movement in Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Burcu, with all your naturality and without hiding your emotions. You were a translator to all our emotions, indeed. So I think there is nobody who will be bored of listening to you in the planet Earth. So we were together in another panel, and you were again this natural in that panel again. I think we have to talk likewise, not with an academic distance, but maybe we have to talk with our emotions, with our sincere feelings. But as a presenter, as a TV presenter, I agree with you. And regarding panel, when we had the first discussion, I told this to Zeynep also. Of course, maybe I went beyond my duty, but violence against women under dramatic lights with maybe makeup, a beaten woman, visuals with such brochures. It cannot be solved with this. It is such a deep problem that we cannot solve with such brochures. So in these months of the year, brands, big companies feel like they have to remember this and to be creative. Sometimes advertisement agencies are doing this, but indeed they are making the issue shallow because of this. And every year, these times, we see such examples, but indeed the issue is deeper than this. And we can continue with a field which is similar to media. Then we will have questions and answers, and we have received many comments, and thank you for sharing your comments. Now I would like to turn to Songül Öden. So Burcu underlined the problem of ethics. I think in film industry, in movies and series industry, we see this. In the last 10 years, in the starring, for example, macho-like or beyond macho-like men are acting, but women are serving for this macho guy, mom-like or sister or wife-like figures. Actors are acting, and such reactions are told a lot on social media. I think what Burcu says is very right. Indeed, social media is warning filmmakers. Maybe international film and series industry can be compared here. So where are we in terms of films, movies, soap operas, TV series? Have we got rid of this macho actors or roles? What do you think about it? And what is your feelings about this? First of all, I would like to greet you all. I would like to greet the women movement. Yes, we of course see many things in this sector. In art house and also in the popular films, women are like hangers still. They are accompanying. They are not heroes still. So in very few films they are heroes. So in the works where we do not have the aim of profit, yes, women can be heroes, but in the other ones, they are just accompanying. So women are like within a triangle. So two women, one man. Man is the victim. He has problems with his wife at home. He would like to divorce because women has very bad behaviors, habits. But on the other side, there is a better, there is a more loving woman, and man is squeezed between these two. And because of these conditions, they cheat, they betray, It's like the story that the being thrown away from the paradise. Still, in the soap operas, we see this, and I have seen something very extraordinary in a new TV series. It was done very good in the beginning, but then it went somewhere very awkward. My character was an idealist one, but then it turned into a devil character, which caused cheating of her husband. And the ratings were also going very bad. And when we were shooting the last episode, without correcting this, I will not be acting, I said. There was a scene there, a woman was talking about herself for a very long time. I will improvise it, or I will not be acting, I said. And I improvised. And in that improvised moment, it was a very also funny story. So, man is lying, and a woman cannot build life over the misery of another woman. So I improvised a very long tirade like this. Yes, this happens in our country. And it will be 9 years this year. I'm working with UN. I have seen many things in the field. I'm always telling this. In the very beginning, I was depressed and I was sleeping because I couldn't cope with the things I have seen in the field. But then this will turn into production, I was said. So you will be a part of this collective and this will pass, I was said. And yes, it passed 2 years ago. 2 years ago, by contributing, again, we can give a direction to the production. And 2 years ago, there we had a play, and 7 characters were in that play, and these were women symbolizing 7 regions of Turkey. And Simge Hanım, you asked Canan Hanım a question. In our play, we are asking this question: as a woman, what did you do? What have you done? So when your neighbor was screaming, what did you do? As a mother-in-law, how did you behave to your bride? So how did you see her as a daughter? Did you find some bad habits in her? So there are different status of women from different regions in this play, and I can say that in the recent times, and as Burcu Hanım mentioned, as a journalist, that he shared a pornographic or private photo, and he used it. And in a similar situation, I was asked that in a period of life, were you exposed to violence? I was asked. And yes, I said, I told the truth. And the same journalist wrote this in his or her column. And I find it very strange that Songül Eden is giving such an answer because she is giving a wrong message. But history can be documented. History can be documented, and it follows you. And yes, you may be blamed in the past because you have shared a private photo. But I can tell anything to a woman. I don't have to have a permission from anybody. You look like a strong woman. Please do not say that you were exposed to violence. So we are exposed to such pressures. I have to share this loudly so that another person can find the strength in her. I would like to also thank Canan for this. During pandemic, together with UN, we published a video. 75% of the women are exposed to violence in their homes. So for that reason, in these periods when everybody is at home, you are not alone. So we also shared some numbers, telephone numbers, and via social media, a woman reached me. I like you, Songül Hanım, very much, but you gave these telephone lines, but nothing will happen. What will happen if I call? I was exposed to violence by my husband, and there was the lockdown for the children under the age of 20, and the child was brought to Antalya by the husband, and there wasn't the trial. because of pandemic, and the mom couldn't reach her child. And I just shared this with Meltem, and this was oriented to Canan, referred to Canan later. And Canan Hanım sent her to Antalya, had the permission from the district governor, and she could go and see her child. Socrates says, please first clean your own street. First, if you can clean your own environment, if you have the courage to tell what you are experiencing loudly, then this chain will grow. Otherwise, we cannot go out of it because we don't have data, as you mentioned. Which age group is violence addict, and in what regions we have more violence? Because we cannot document it, we cannot find solutions for these. Yes, there are many statistical data, but they are not transparent. Whenever you say, if we say, for example, Istanbul Convention, you are dealing with politics, you are telling wrong things. So we are kicking the ball in a very narrow field, and we do not have the ability to move. Yes, I will continue my struggle, and I'm not interested in any political parties. From the point that I believe, and with my own conscience, organizing myself, I will be telling my stories. I will be telling my story. I don't want to take your time anymore because there will be the questions and answers. So this is all from me. And one of our followers said that your play is a marvelous one, only if all Turkey watched it, saw it. If we can pass this pandemic process healthily, maybe in a very short period of time, we will come to watch you, see your game. Thank you very much. It will be very good, I think. In the pandemic process, musicians, artists, theater players, they were exposed to very difficult times. And when we pass these times healthily, women to women, in terms of women to women support, will be shown to you by watching you in the first row. I haven't seen your play, but when it is possible, I would like to. And Zeynep also shared this information with me. In psychology, there is the psychological demolition. Yes, it is a very part process. It is disruptive, but in your artist persona, it made a reflection. Yes, it is sad, but you are trying to heal a wound. So I think we have to congratulate you for that reason. It has to be appreciated. And we will continue with questions. But before questions, our panelists, would you like to add something? You may have recalled something, or based on the other contributions of the panelists, you would like to contribute. Would you like to make some additions? If there is none, I can continue with the questions.
I think you have nothing to add because none of you turned off your microphones. Then I'd like to start with my questions, and then I will continue with the questions that we received from the audience. In fact, Canan has slightly touched upon one obstacle, that is the female perspective that we need to overcome if we want to eliminate violence against women. This is a perspective that legitimizes violence, that creates excuses for violence. However, when women are doing it, or let's say people are doing it, they're putting the lives of others into darkness. So this is turning a blind eye to violence. I would like to get your opinion about this group of people. So what can we do to deal with that perspective which legitimizes violence against women? Canan, you would like to go first, please. So I spent my 31 years working in the field. So there's too much masculine and male violence. So I don't favor the idea of putting this on the foreground. Because it is the male mind practicing the violence on women, and and the women cannot get rid of violence by making use of the available mechanisms. But if you just show one rare example and use it to create an excuse for the violence, then it will create a big disadvantage for the women movement. And we say that, okay, the men are also born of women. Isn't it our own fault? No, we have to focus on the victim of violence, which is the woman itself. We need to talk about the available mechanisms. We need to talk about raising social awareness. What kind of education should be provided at school? So first we have to finish that race in an equal way. If there is still something wrong on the women's side, then we will talk about it. But, because of Istanbul Convention, we need to integrate gender equality into the curriculum at schools, and also women should be included visibly in the politics in different fields, rights and equalities should be provided to and enabled for women. First, we have to transform the male mind and patriarchal mind. Would you like to add anything, or I have a question for Professor Feride? Are you ready? Yes, I am. You talk about proper data. And you said it's quite difficult to find sound and proper data. Canan also made a reference to this, and we need to trust in the state memory and the archives, but it's also disputable how sound the system is. There's one question from YouTube about this. During crisis, for example, the pandemic that we are having now, in those crises, how can we collect sound and proper data? Thank you. Before I proceed with this question, I would like to utter one sentence about the previous question. Jana already answered that question, but I fully support her. I totally agree with her. Yeah. Patriarchy is a social order, and until you successfully demolish that patriarchal society, then the women have to play a role in that system. It's the social and sociological reality. But, with changes, amendments, transformations, you can correct it. So the priority is to eliminate male violence, is to eliminate discrimination, and you have to work on the man for this. So I totally agree with Canan. Now, about your question, how do we access data during pandemic? This is how I understand your question. Even without the pandemic, it was challenging for us to access correct and sound data. This has been mentioned by almost all the speakers today. And Canan just talked about the details. Okay, who was the murderer? Who was the victim? What was the relation between the two? These are very simple questions to put. These are very simple data pieces. They are not standardized, but they are not turned into statistics. Even if they are, they're not disclosed. And some authorities say that, okay, we have the data. We know all about this. But then you have to disclose them. Those information pieces should be public, or they should be accessible for researchers, and the civil society should be able to get this data in a sound way. Okay, during the there is a huge gap in this regard in Turkey. Let's think about what's happening during the pandemic. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but every day we are discussing if the number of cases and number of deaths are correctly announced in relation to the pandemic. So we are going through such an era. So this is just like a literally lockdown. So we are locked down, but this is a real closing and locking down. This is like, okay, you break your arm and you never mention about the pain. This is the picture. This is like a race. Okay, we are encountering a disaster now. We are in a catastrophe now, and we are recovering, and we are recovering quick. And we invented this job for ourselves, and this is a race. Now let's use the same analogy for violence against women. And also think about the results that are obtained during the pandemic. So there is no state instinct to help us in this matter. So I think the state instinct is to hide secret or keep secret what is going on during the pandemic. What was the situation of girls who had to leave or drop their education? What is the difference between boys and girls during the pandemic? This is a serious inequality, and that will bring about some violence events. And what will be the impact on child marriages? This will never end. Okay, on one hand, we don't have the information. On one hand, you may say that it's too early to think and ask about it. I don't know. We need this data. Thank you, dear professor. In fact, we have completed our time. In fact, we have even exceeded it. But both Songül and Burcu, you're from a different sector, but I would love to hear from you the ideas that you have about what can be done in your sector. So Songül, I will give you the priority. So can you speak for your sector? What role can your sector play in elimination of violence? And then Burcu may answer the same question. Okay, the first thing to do is to change the language. The approach to gender equality should be changed. Women and men should have more equalitarian roles in the scenarios. So the characters must play constructive roles. Okay, me and my colleagues, when we see some offensive wording for the vulnerable groups, we insist on omitting them because we don't want to create any wrong effect. I also paid too much attention to this in my play. Questions from the media, and we can disclose them, we can make them public so that they will get awareness about what they were doing. For many years, we've been receiving the same questions. Okay, would you kiss in a movie? Would you get naked in a movie? Okay, please, would you please learn asking different questions? You always ask the same questions to the women. You do not ask those questions to the men. And when someone asks me this question, or either me or some colleagues, we just make these people public. I know awareness is not Burcu's favorite word, but we need to raise awareness at that very moment, immediately, without losing any time, promptly. Thanks to God, we have the social media and we have this reaction coming from women. And my colleagues, many other actors I know, they share the same reaction. We will continue fighting. I can take over. Yes, please. I can give an example from medicine. In medicine, the physicians get specialized. You can get specialized in many other fields as well. That used to be true for journalism as well. I'm not speaking about the current conditions of journalism, but when you think about the editorial offices, the number of journalists, reporters, and editors was reduced. Now, the people in the media sector have very limited opportunities to get specialized. So one reporter is expected to cover stories about many fields: environment, women, economy, all of them. Okay. When I have to, I can cover stories about environment and economy, but I have my own field of specialization. For example, gender, human rights, and migration. These are the topics I am mostly focused on. It's important that you get specialized because no one person can know about everything. And you cannot cover a story in the best way if you don't have specialization. This is a possibility. And you cannot get specialized on everything. Sometimes there are trainings given for the media. These are trainings about gender equality. If you do not get that training, if you are not educated, you cannot cover a story properly. For example, you should know what does the acronym LGBTI stand for. Maybe I will repeat myself, but I would like to say it again. Okay, Sonja said that, okay, if they see or hear any questions that are improperly put, then they just disclose, they just make it public. I also agree with this. In the past, we didn't have the opportunity of interacting with our readers, but now with the social media, we have this opportunity. When I write a story, someone who reads my story can immediately react and give its message to me. This is also true for the media corporations. But then, how is actual violence affected by the news stories covered on the media? I always give the same answer to this question. We need to research about this. I'm a reporter, I'm a journalist. I cannot give a yes or no answer, but there is something called emulation or imitation. Münevver Karabulut, after her, some women were murdered in a similar way. And men started throwing Molotov cocktails to the balconies of their divorced wives. So you see some similar crimes following the first example. And when also men read in the newspaper that, okay, when they go to court, they will get a reduction in their penalty if they behave themselves. Okay, this is just my personal observation as a journalist. Women get killed, yes, but recently women get killed with torturing. The men do not just come and shoot them. They torture, they kill, they torture, they burn the body. So if this is a fact, I'm a journalist. I need to cover it, but when I am using this detail in my story, I will be careful with the language that I use, with the way that I use the details. Okay, you can say that Pınar Gültekin was killed in this house, and then you can give a picture. It doesn't add anything to the story. So journalism is done for the public benefit. If you cover the story, think about the details you are incorporating into your story. Is it going to make any public benefit or not? If there's no public benefit, then it's paparazzi. And all members of the media should take this into consideration. And in gender equality issues, all women and all reporters should act accordingly.
We have many questions, but we have come to the end of our panel. Maybe in another gathering, we can answer the questions more. Sevda Hanım, regarding business world, you have shared some data. And one last sentence, please, about what you shared. So in our works with companies, especially in trainings, we do see people with barriers. But of course, when coming across such people, we have to think that in Turkey, as of primary school, in terms of gender equality, we are not receiving any education. So the people that we are changing their perceptions is adults. and all the women that I see in these works, they do have the strength of explaining, and this is endless in them. And when we have such people, then I think we will be raising awareness in such people with barriers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, each and every one of you. Sevda Alkan, Burcu Karakaş, Songül Öden, Canan Güllü, Professor Feride Acar, and Meltem Ağduk. Thank you for allocating time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And up until today, thank you very much for showing your sensitivity, and for your efforts. Canan Hanım mentioned, may God give you more strength, and may your strength increase. And I hope days will end where we remember women with violence. Thank you very much for watching us. Thank you for allocating time for us. Thank you for sending your questions to us, dear followers. Because we have limited time, we couldn't answer all the questions. Hopefully in another panel, we will be answering more questions of yours. Thank you very much once again for your participation, and hopefully soon we will see each other again. See you. Struggle will make us win, dear Simge. Yes, struggle will make us win. Thank you very much for your contribution lastly, gentlemen.